Tougen Anki season one, technically, finale has just finally released, titled Thank You. All the information you need to know about Core 2 will be announced just shortly. Let's talk about it. All right, guys, Brent here back for Geek Variants. Cover all things Marvel, DC, Lord of the Rings, anime, gaming, Star Wars, Magic the Gathering, and more. This time, Tuganaki Season 1, well, Core 1 finale is be a total of 24 episodes in all. Basically, we're to get 2 weeks off. We're to come back on October 3rd, and that will be beginning our next Core, aka our next arc for Tuganaki. So it'll be a little bit of a break here, but we'll still have it covered when it does, in fact, drop. And it kind of feels like the season finale was kind of a dud. So it's like, makes a lot of sense logically that we're setting up basically for our next arc. Because while season one, or at least core one, has been fantastic, and not only the introduction of characters, spelling out what the characters are about, their personal interests, it also spelled out a lot about pertaining to, like, the children of Kishin and how the Oni and Momotaro have just been going at it for forever. And this episode was actually more about Subakire than anything. And that's the person who I least likely expected to get like any kind of backstory. But I guess the anime or the manga itself is trying to normalize, or at least make our characters semi gray standing, so to speak, as in morally they are right in that their thought process, but then when you combine it with the rest of the worldview and everything else of the other side that they're facing, it turns from their right to now it's more of a gray and muddied issue. Subakire lost his parents at a very, very young age. They got, eliminated by Oni, so he's never really had too much love pertaining to them, but he took things a lot differently than most people do. He kind of took it in stride and saw it as a weight being lifted from his life. If that's your response to your loved ones perishing, I think you should probably be kind of concerned about the situation either you're in mentally, or just about how you truly care about individuals. We know there's tons of people who, when they do lose others, kind of go off the deep end. So for him to lose his parents and just be like, a little concerning. But then on top of that, he, continues to work for the Momotaro agency, and he has a whole lot of interesting interactions. But he felt dead inside. He thought this was kind of a waste of time. Which work was kind of stalling, wasn't really going anywhere. Just was kind of, he was going along to get along, so to speak. He wasn't really living, so to speak, up until Monica showed up in his life. And Monica was his captain and was an individual that a lot of people actually looked up to inside of the Momotaro agency. This individual was someone who was respected by his colleagues, had a family, lived a good life, but was actually genuinely kind to a lot of individuals around him, including his enemies. He was nice to Oni, and that actually turned out to be his biggest flaw in a freak accident where ultimately he sees a Oni child, and he makes direct eye contact and confuses that child in the heat of the moment for sympathizing that it could be like his kid. He sees his kid reflected in this Oni child who's afraid and whose family was being, attacked and eliminated because Momotaro versus Oni, still alive and well, unfortunately, in that day and age. Then, as he let that only child go, the only child went on a rampage throughout the streets of Tokyo. And unfortunately, his family happened to be out and about during that time period, and they got eliminated, which sent Monica into a rage. Monica went to go avenge his family, and ultimately he perished as well. Monica's dying words to Subakure were, use me, use my body, make sure that I'm able to get the revenge later that I couldn't get right now. And that is exactly how he ended up being used by Subakure, even though Subakure in the end really turned out not to be much. Like, he is a diabolical, ruthless, heartless, callous individual, but he still wasn't able to get the job done. Even with his emotions turned off, he got eliminated by a child of Kishin who barely figured out, left from right and how any of his powers or skill set works, even though Shiki did find himself in this arc he wasn't really able to expand upon too many other things. Like, sure, he's able to get control of his blood regularly, but I'm sure the child and Kishin thing is probably going to be something that he's not going to be able to pull out at whim for at least a good long while. So we kind of had an interesting situation there. The good news, the doctor ended up surviving. Sure, he had his carotid artery slashed. However, the blood ended up on the ceiling and it ended up falling down. Being an Oni, he was able to drink his own blood and kind of resuscitate himself. And thus, he was able to kind of sneak around and he was able to save a bunch of lives, get everybody together, and get everyone to safety. And ultimately, they were able to, in the end, eliminate Subakira thanks to Teach, who finished him off with an umbrella right through the heart just to ensure that there was not going to be another round two, which is probably for the best because Subakira coming back on a vengeance path would be absolutely crazy. And the other good news, Doc decided that, hey, May's going to stick around. She's going to hang out with us. And we're going to kind of, try and raise her as best we can. Maybe she'll become a medical Oni. Who knows? We hope that she gets ultimately a more peaceful life than what she's exhibited because things have been bad. We go back to school, everything's basically normal. We get, hey, there's going to be three kinds of units. You'll get to decide at the end of, your time here. So you need to really figure out what exactly your specialty is. However, in the meantime, I need you guys to room up. There's an odd number of people, and the odd person out has to hang out with the teacher, which of course teenagers end up fighting, and everyone is having crazy moments because Sazaname is trying to do everything in her power to enforce her will upon Kiriyama. Um, yeah, I'm not even going to talk about that. I'm just going to say that that was something. And ultimately it was decided that girls cannot room with boys, so that saves him from Sazaname absolutely ruining him for the rest of his life and the rest of his days for any number of reasons, because clearly they don't know each other that well for her to be feeling this passionately about what's going on. There's only two girls, so naturally they room up. However, the boys have a hard time figuring out exactly what to do because you have two loudmouths. You have Jin, who's basically a psychopath, and then you have our perverted nerd hanging out as well. Not even counting our neurotic individual who just doesn't know how to live at all. Because I thought he was finally going to grow out of his shell, but I guess that was more of a temp thing than anything. Ultimately, Shiki ends up rooming with Jin. The nerd ends up having to hang out with Teach. And then we have our awkward neurotic with our loudmouth guy, who's actually apparently more of a gentleman than everybody else in the room because he was just kind of like, yeah, you guys shouldn't be doing any of that till you're in your 20s. And well, he right. But, he's a potty mouth, so no one really takes it into too much of a consideration. As we're panning out for our arc one, well, turns out Shinya is not done. Shinya wants that promotion, and he wants that promotion bad. Why he wants this promotion so darn bad, I really truly don't know. But at the end of the day, Shiki is number one on his hit list, and he's willing to go outside of his territory to ensure that he's able to get the job done so he gets promoted because from eliminating a child, the Kishin is apparently very high on the Momotaru hit list. That's been all for Core 1 pertaining to Tougen Anki's episode 12 titled Thank You. Be sure to hit the subscribe button if you truly love the content, as it greatly helps us out, as well as hitting that like button, sharing us around, hyping us up, all that other good stuff that YouTube wants you to do, as well as hitting the follow button if you're listening to us on Spotify. We'll see you back in 2 weeks for more Tougen Anki, which of course we will have covered. As well as at that time, we'll probably have One Punch Man rolling around the week after, and the final season of My Hero Academia, which of course I'll also have covered for you, the viewer. I'll see you then.